5.
Curry hits a three.
4.
Just for the drive. Deep left field.
3.
Patrick hit by Watt. Sack number 10.
2.
Messi with a record-breaking goal.
1.
Welcome to BSS Sports. Now, here are your hosts, Steve and Trevor.
Good afternoon and welcome to another edition of BSS Sports. My name is Stephen Schill with the ever-lovely Trevor Struthers and 3 Stanley Cups for Sidney Crosby. It's a team sport, but he's the only focus. And then looking down at Cleveland. For some reason, they hate Draymond Green, while the rest of the league hates Kevin Durant. And then Aaron Judge of the Yankees being a breakout superstar. 25 home runs already. So, Sidney Crosby, I feel like the kid, pun intended, can't catch a break. He's got 3 Stanley Cups. He's won the Olympics with Canada. For whatever reason, many Canadians don't really like the guy. They use the term, oh, crybaby, this or that, but they love to see him on their team. Nonetheless, he's got 3 cups. Trev, is he arguably going to become better than Gretzky if he keeps this up?
Well, no. I mean, individually, nobody's going to touch what Wayne Gretzky ever did. Unless, I mean, obviously, there's this, fantastic player that comes sometime down the wire. But, I mean, nobody will be able to touch what Wayne Gretzky was able to do in terms of total points. Like Crosby, he's had a solid career. I mean, nobody's obviously going to be able to argue against that. But the fact that individually, point-wise, he's not even coming close to approaching Gretzky kind of tells you just how good Gretzky is. Same thing with Jaromir Jagr. And I mean, if he didn't leave the NHL for that period of time, who knows where he would be at. The fact, he's 40 years old and he's still contributing, pardon me, and he has no shot at catching Gretzky either. So Gretzky is going to be maybe impossible for anybody to catch unless there's some unhuman thing that comes down the wire sometime within the next maybe 100 years, 200 years or something, and really lights the lamp on fire. Because I mean, Sidney Crosby, obviously great career to this point, and he's still not even 30 yet. But he doesn't have a shot at reaching Gretzky.
So, we all know you have to score to win a hockey game, and Phil Kessel coming over from Toronto, helping to provide that for the Penguins. Weird question, I guess, but do you think the Penguins would have done this without that trade with Toronto to acquire Phil Kessel?
It's an interesting question. I mean, obviously, all the talk last year when they won the Stanley Cup was about the HBK line, which included Kessel along with Bonino and Hagelin. I mean, this year they were kind of separated, but even then it was a lot of Kessel and Malkin. And I mean, even if you look back to the conference final, and Game 2 was a big one for Pittsburgh, down 1-0 in that series to the Ottawa Senators. It's their final chance at home before going on the road for 2 games to try to get a win under their belt. Scoreless halfway through the third period, and Phil Kessel strikes, and they end up winning that game 1-0 off of a Phil Kessel goal. So, I mean, obviously his scoring ability has the chance to turn a game around, especially in the playoffs, and everything's a lot more tight checking and usually less scoring unless there's that one blowout game that the Penguins always seem to have. But apart from that, it's always pretty low scoring and pretty close. So, I mean, yeah, anytime you have a guy that can put the puck in the net like a Phil Kessel, it's a game breaker in the playoffs.
Obviously, the series went to a Game 6, Pittsburgh winning it 2-0 in the final game yesterday. Kind of reflecting on the series at all, do you think that Nashville could have done anything really different, or is it just the fact that Pittsburgh are veterans in the Cup?
It's an interesting question. I mean, obviously, it would have been really nice if they had Ryan Johansson for Nashville there, their number 1 centerman. Anytime that obviously happens, there's concern. And, I mean, that's the thing that has been the big concern for Nashville throughout the playoffs. If anything, it has been their scoring up front. I mean, obviously, we talk a lot about their blue line and how fantastic they are defensively. They have a great goaltender. Their defense is able to chime in offensively, and it seems like crazy rates. Yossi, Ekholm, Ellis really had a coming out party, and of course Subban. So they really have guys that jump in from that back end and help contribute and put up points. But the big concern was offensively, and there were guys out there that had some pretty quiet series, and Mike Fisher was among one of them as well, the captain of the team. And I mean, obviously he's an older guy, and the reason he's the captain isn't because he's a fantastic player like some teams seem to do. The reason he's a captain is he's been around, and he's been to a Stanley Cup final before as well, with that being 10 years ago in 2007 with the Senators. So I mean, obviously he's a guy that has those leadership qualities, and that's why they put the C on him. It's not necessarily to go out there and lead the team in points, but yeah, I mean, they just at times they left a lot to be desired. It seemed like offensively, and a lot of people would tell you as well they didn't get any help from the officials. And when it came to certain calls, with the goal being called back in the game 6 just last night, and then going back to game 1 as well in this series with the offside call on the Subban goal, they called that one back. Both of those could be debatable calls where maybe Nashville didn't get the benefit of the doubt on those calls. And if it goes the other way, they have a couple of goals that, in the case of the Subban goal, would have been the first goal not only of the game but of the series, and gets them going in the right direction. And in Game 6 the other night, that obviously would have given them the lead in a must-win game at home and really got that crowd going. Not that the crowd was ever quiet after that, but ultimately I think that's what it came down to, and that was a real disappointment when it came to the Predators. An injury obviously had a part, like I said, Johansson going down and losing Fiala as well. But, I mean, guys like Forsberg, Arvidsson, they also seem to have a pretty quiet series for the most part.
So, final question regarding this final. Which team do you think is most likely to win it again in the near future?
Probably Pittsburgh. I mean, when it comes to the expansion draft, I think everybody, for the most part, at the moment, and it could be different, who knows? I mean, obviously, we don't know what Vegas is going to do yet, but we think they're gonna lose a goaltender, and that's easy to recover from if you can, find somebody else. I mean, really, in a way, they almost have 2 starting goaltenders, and it was kind of an interesting moment last night with the cup being passed around that Marc-Andre Fleury. First off, he got it before Matt Murray. I think obviously a lot of that has to do with the age, but the fact that Marc-Andre Fleury gave it to Matt Murray, kind of a passing of the torch, I guess, of sorts. And so, that's obviously Murray is going to be the guy that the Penguins protect, assuming Fleury waives his no move, because I think he still has that, and so he's got to do that, and I believe he will do that, and that allows Vegas to pick Fleury. I don't think we see Fleury back on this team next year. And maybe Vegas goes with somebody else on the Penguins, but I mean, this is an incredibly deep team. I mean, obviously they're still going to have guys like Crosby and Malkin next year. They're still going to have Kessel. They're still going to have a lot of fantastic offensive pieces. Hornquist has been a big guy for them in the playoffs over the last couple of years, and even on that back end, they'll get Letang back probably, I would imagine, and a young player like Ole Mata developing well. And I mean, we talk about Kessel leaving Toronto and winning 2 Stanley Cups. How with Justin Schultz leaving Edmonton, and now he's got 2 Stanley Cups as well on that back end, and he finds a way. He had a really big goal in that Game 7 against Ottawa on the power play that at the moment put them up 2-1 before Ottawa tied it a couple minutes later. So Justin Schultz even on that team as well. They have a lot of solid pieces moving forward that, obviously assuming they're able to hold on to them all with the free agent markets and everything, they can only lose one to Vegas. So this is still going to be a team to be reckoned with next year.
So in the NBA Finals, things got a little testy between the Warriors and the Cavaliers in Cleveland. Cleveland ended up winning the game 137-116. However, the Warriors could have gone undefeated in the playoffs if they swept the series and it took that Game 4. But that wasn't the case. A lot of really confusion with the referees over some odd calls, saying, oh no, it was Draymond Green getting a technical foul call, or oh no, it was Steve Kerr, which would have resulted in Draymond Green being kicked out earlier in the game when that happened, and just a whole lot of things that you wouldn't think would happen at a very professional level. Cleveland really disliking Draymond with the Draymond sucks chant, talking about how the rest of the league hates Kevin Durant. LeBron James doesn't even sit in the finals anymore. This series is it's taking a new spin. Are you a fan of this one, Trev?
I'm not a fan of blowout games, and it almost feels like apart from Game 3, we haven't really had too many close ones. So far, obviously you mentioned how tensions are rising and all that, and Cleveland chanting at Draymond, how they don't like them, the Draymond sucks chants, but Draymond coming into the series let everybody know he doesn't like Cleveland. I think at both times he's been referring to the team and the city, so He doesn't seem to like Cleveland as a city either, so I mean to chant that at him, I feel like it's obviously fair game. But yeah, I mean obviously the emotions heating up. We've been begging on the NBA playoffs throughout up until this point, obviously, because we knew what the final was going to be. But the thing is, now that we're here, now that we're enjoying it, even though, like I said, we've only really had the one, close game that could have gone either way late in the fourth quarter. And now we're seeing essentially what's a grudge match between these teams because it's tied 1-1 coming into this one, and this one obviously it could be that big game changer with we thought Golden State. I said a week ago on this program, it wouldn't be surprising if the Cavs got swept. And I mean, they were pretty close to it. Obviously, they fell down 3-0, and Kevin Durant, of all people, with the big shot late in that fourth quarter that won them Game 3 and put them up 3-0 in the series. That's gotta be a real heartbreaker for the Cavs. But they were able to bounce back well, and boy, did they ever in that first half. They put up like 89 points in the half or something like that, something ridiculous. You got about over 40 from LeBron and Kyrie in that half, and they just kind of took that game over and didn't give Golden State a chance going into the second half.
When you look at the game, it's getting familiar with last year because Cleveland was down 3-1, not in the exact same fashion as this one, but they were down and they were able to go on a three-game winning streak and win this out. Do you think that's possible at this point, or do you think that the Cleveland just got lucky and hypothetically, the referees were more or less in their favor? Because it is hard to deal with the Warriors based off the fact that they're superstar ridden. And I mean, if you've ever played a superstar in your gym class in dodgeball, it's not fun.
Well, it's funny how you look at it, right? Because, I mean, like you said, yeah, 3-1 series lead for Golden State. That's the popular meme that's been used now, overused on all the popular social media pages of the big sports companies by fans just posting Golden State in the 3-1 lead and how that's happened over the last year. But yeah, I mean, obviously, if you look at it from that perspective, there's a shot. Cleveland needs to win 3 games. The issue with that, obviously, is trying to take 2 in Golden State, or 2 in Oakland, I should say. Golden State's not even a place, but you know what I mean. And that's obviously going to be a big struggle. But I mean, the way you could also look at it as well. Sure, it's easy, sure they could win 3 in a row because they did it last year against this team in the final, but they would have to they would end up winning 4 in a row and come back from a 3-0 series deficit, where if you talk about that in basketball, it's basically impossible to do. So it really depends, I guess, on where you're coming from. But I mean, it's amazing how you can change kind of the perspective when you do get that first win down 3-0 in that series. And now you can kind of look at it like, hey, I mean, Cleveland, all they have to do now is do what they did last year, and they can beat the Warriors. And so, yeah, it's the difference of that one game, and obviously this is a huge boost now for the Cavs. But, obviously Golden State still has a crazy huge advantage in this series. They just need that one more game, and with how good of a team they are and the fact that they almost went 16-0 in the playoffs, I believe that it should be coming over the next couple of games.
Game 5 goes tonight in Oakland, which I agree, Golden State really confuses me, and I just want to call it Golden State, even though it's not technically a place, but that game happens at 9 p.m. tonight. If you haven't heard, the Yankees are currently leading the American League East, but with that being said, they have a pretty kind of breakout superstar in the guy named Aaron Judge. If you haven't heard about him, he's a 25-year-old, first time in the MLB, and he is absolutely killing it. And then across the league, there's a bunch of other sort of mysterious things. The Minnesota Twins, leading the American League Central. The Houston Astros, who genuinely have been good in somewhat recent years, but they're leading the West. And then in the National League, this is where things get a little weird. The Colorado Rockies are leading the National League West, and if I'm not wrong, they were the worst team in MLB last year. Trev, there's X amount of players on a baseball field. There's so many contributing factors. For the Yankees, yes, they have Aaron Judge, and that's obviously helping them with 25 home runs. I mean, that would help any team. But do you think these people are just getting single players that are making a big impact, or is some of the teams like Colorado finally finding their stride?
Well, the funny thing with the Rockies is you're still trying to figure out how. And I mean, the real couple of guys that stand out with what they've done production wise this season, from what I've seen, is Charlie Blackmon is among the league leader in hits, the MLB league leader in hits, and Greg Holland's their closer. And obviously, we know the success Greg Holland can have with being with the Kansas City Royals and having a lot of success as their closer. So they do have a couple solid pieces there, and I mean, but if you look at that pitching rotation. What's the starter with the lowest ERA? It's Kyle Freeland with an ERA of 3.34. So it's not outstanding. In comparison, the league leader is Dallas Keuchel at 1.67. With that being said, he's the only guy under 2, but the next one's 2.18, and then you have a couple 2.20s. So so their best ERA guy is a full run behind those really elite level players. And I mean, it's not like they're running away with the NL West either. I think ultimately the Dodgers will end up catching them and passing them because they are the better team. But the Rockies and I mean, hey, even the Brewers in the Central at the time, and we all know when you pay attention to the highlight shows and watch baseball, the kind of start that former Blue Jay Eric Dames got off to start the year, and he's still amongst the top 15 in home runs in baseball. So, I mean, obviously, it's quite the comeback he's made to help out that team. And sometimes it takes a surprising performance like that from a few guys to get you in a spot like that when you weren't originally supposed to be there, like a Rockies or the Brewers to this point in the year.
So that's it for this edition of BSS Sports, but just to mention, the Blue Jays are last in the American League East, unfortunately. We'll get back there, hopefully before the All-Star break, and we'll see you in the playoffs, if you will. Make sure to like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter at BSS Sports, archiving all of our works on YouTube at BSS Productions. For Trevor Struthers and myself, Stephen Schill, we'll catch you next month.